Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Night Show. I am your host and athletic director, Michael Fahey. I want to start off by saying I hope all of you had a very Merry Christmas with your families. I certainly did, and I know a lot of our Christmases look different given the circumstances of the COVID pandemic, but we made the most of it, and we truly had a fabulous time celebrating on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We're bringing another episode to you to wrap up the 2020 year. It's been a crazy year, but I do not want to miss the opportunity to introduce our new head baseball coach, Coach Matt Smith. Matt brings a tremendous amount of experience from various different private and Catholic schools in the Chicagoland area, and he brings Division III baseball playing and coaching experience to the table. Truly excited to introduce him to you. The interview we had was great, and you can definitely hear his passion for the game of baseball and his student athletes at IC Catholic Prep. I hope you enjoy. Go Knights. Episode. So we are rolling right now, and I do want to thank you for jumping on here. You know, before we clicked record, we talked about the benefits of starting this, and I think it's very beneficial to have all of our coaches on here, especially if they are new to the community, just for parents and student athletes to get a face with the name and kind of understand your background and what you have, your philosophy and whatnot coming into IC. So thank you so much for jumping on during break.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's something I've always been interested in. And as we talked about kind of being podcast people, it's always pretty cool to do it. And then when you're asked to do it, it's a little nerve wracking because you're like, oh my God, like, what do these people talk about? How are they doing stuff and everything? So did a little research on how just to communicate through a podcast.
Well, there's like different schools of thought with podcasts where it's like some are just like jump on here and talk about what you talk about and see how it goes, right. And then there's ones that are more structured that, maybe a journalist might be doing a straight Q&A, where, we've had enough conversations, but we both know we both like to talk. So right. I don't think we're going to have any issues filling up 25, 30 minutes for our listeners. So let's jump right into this.
All righty.
Head baseball coach, Matt Smith. You have a pretty good playing career, pretty good coaching career. So talk us through maybe from high school on playing and how you transitioned into your coaching and where you've been that led you to IC Catholic Prep.
All right, absolutely. I went to Notre Dame High School. It's an all-boys school in Niles. I was a two-sport athlete there. Did football and baseball. If you kind of ask any of my coaches what was my first love, they'll always say baseball. So I was there for a varsity athlete for 2 years there. Got called up by halfway through my sophomore year. Great time there. Loved it. It really kind of helped shape me to who I am today. As a high school athlete and as a coach and as a person. So from Notre Dame, I went to Concordia University in River Forest, which when I first got there, we were a 500 team and kind of middle of the road in our conference. And as of 2 years ago, proud to say we were number one in the nation for an entire year. So very, very proud to be an alum from there. During my time at Concordia, I was a pitcher. I actually came in as an outfielder. And then transitioned to a pitcher halfway through the fall of my freshman year. And kind of came out of the bullpen, did a couple of things my freshman year. And the last 3 years, I was the closer. So really embraced that role, really took it, the bull's horns and kind of ran with it. I loved it. It was fun coming into those pressure situations, kind of game is on the line, the other team's looking to get the best of you. And it really kind of fueled me as a player. And I didn't know I really had that in me until that first experience happened. And I was just like, you know what, this is great. It was a huge adrenaline rush. And I'm like, this is fantastic. And I'm going to just really embrace it and dive into that. So doing that, I had a pretty good college career. I was in the NCAA for 2 records, don't hold them, but in the record book and NCAA. And then I held the record for most appearances at Concordia with 79 appearances. So a couple things that, you know, I kind of am proud to do that. It was never, you know, trying to chase a goal or a record book or anything. It was just going out there every day and just trying to be better than the previous day. So from there, I actually got a business degree when I was at Concordia as an undergrad. But then when I finished up, I was like, you know what? I really enjoy being around the game. Especially my senior year, I really started to kind of think of myself as a coach and really wanted to pursue that and didn't really know kind of what avenues to take, especially with a business degree, knowing that, you know, if I did decide to go into the business world, it'd be really difficult to get to the ball field every day. So when I graduated in December, the head coach at the time asked me if I wanted to join the coaching staff. He's like, I'll give you $1,000. You want to just come join, help us out? I know how much you want to do. I said, absolutely. So I did that. And then that following August, I applied for the graduate assistant's job. And so I was a full-time student getting my master's done, but then also a graduate assistant for 3 years. So I really jumped into coaching for 3 years at the collegiate level, which I loved. And I will be the first one to say, if anyone is looking to go pursue a degree beyond their bachelor's, and if you're an athlete, become a graduate assistant. It gives you a whole different aspect of the game. It gives you a different, you know, everyday routine of what coaches go through. So I really think those 3 years helped shape me to who I am as a coach and to really set that foundation of the great stepping stones, a great blueprint of who I am and the core of who I am as a coach. So I did that for 3 years, loved it. Totally different aspect from playing to coaching, which is, if people didn't understand what it's like to be a college coach, become a GA and you realize the daily grind that you go through with being a college coach. And I know, you know, you were around the game at that kind of aspect a little bit, from playing at Benedictine to, you know, being at UIC and down at Tennessee. Like, you saw a totally different aspect, and it gives you a totally different shape and mindset of the game and how to absorb it and how to take it in. So from there, when I finish up
let me cut you off. The benefits, and after you're done, we'll revisit a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple questions that popped up, but just the benefits of being a graduate assistant. I didn't get the opportunity to be a graduate assistant, but I was a young video coordinator at University of Tennessee, and then I went to DePaul. And, you know, to piggyback off of what you're saying, the benefits of being the low man on the totem pole and kind of being forced to be that jack of all trades and learning from all these different coaches, the benefits are tremendous. You know, you learn so many different aspects of the of the staff and of the job, you know. So
and the networking that goes along with it too. You know, there's the ABCA, the National Convention, and going down there my first time as a coach, I mean, it was like instantly hooked. Like, you're like, wow, there is like 7,000 guys who feel and breathe the same passion that I have for coaching and teaching the game and developing players. And it's just like, and it's everyone from the Division I level all the way to high school coaches and even youth coaches. And like, the cool part with it is, like, I'm 22 years old, and I'm in an elevator right next to Mike Martin, the legendary coach at Florida State. And I'm standing there and I'm just like, and I kick myself to this day. I didn't say anything, but I'm just like, I have no idea what to say to this guy. Like, what do you say to a legendary Hall of Fame coach at one of the most iconic programs in the country? So, so from there, I did my student teaching out at Elgin High School, and I was the head sophomore coach at Streamwood High School in U46, which was awesome. It was really cool going from a GA to being like, hey, you're the head sophomore coach, you know. And that year was a special year at Streamwood. I got to be a part of a team that made it all the way to the super sectional championship. So that was the first time, being a part of that, which was, again, I was extremely lucky and blessed to be a part of it, because it's like, I know what it takes to get there, the atmosphere, what it's like. I mean, imagine at a high school game and there's, 1,000 people there. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but normal high school games, you get 50 and you're like, oh, that's a ton. But you're to a playoff game, there's 1,000 people. It's pretty cool. It's electric. It's an awesome time. So from there, I went to Maine West for 2 years. I was a teacher's assistant there. I was a head freshman, and then I was a varsity assistant my second year. And then I landed a full-time teaching gig at a school in the city, and then made the transition from there to Notre Dame, my alma mater. I was there for 4 years and loved it. It was great. It was awesome to be able to give back to the school that gave me so much for 4 years. And then and always looking to grow. And that was the one thing as a coach, and I'll always kind of tell, people who are looking to pursue into coaching, it's like, always find an opportunity to be able to grow. Always find an opportunity to better yourself and really be challenged as a coach too. So, made the switch over to Loyola Academy, big rivalry of Notre Dame outside of St. Pat's. I was there for 2 years. Again, very successful when we were there. Gave a great run for it my first year. Lost in the super sectional championship again. And that was, again, an awesome team, great experience. And then from there, I was offered a head coaching job at St. Francis down in Wheaton. Obviously, because of COVID, I was there for maybe a week and a half. So it's really hard to say I did really any coaching there. And then the opportunity to always want to be a head coach was in the back of my mind. Even from my first head coaching job back at Streamwood, I was like, you know what? I really want to run my own program someday. And saw that there was an opportunity at IC and applied for it, and was very grateful to be able to take over a historic program, a very good program, and try to take it to the next level. So very lucky to be a part of it, be a part of the IC family, and excited to, see what 2020 brings for us.
Totally. Oh, that's great. Thank you for walking us through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know, like we have the running joke that you went to Notre Dame and Niles. I went to St. Patrick High School, and they're huge rivalries. But
yes,
definitely got to tip my hat off to their baseball program, and they have some great people there that I've got to know. And obviously, after you graduate, all the rivalry stuff goes in the trash.
Oh yeah.
But you mentioned that it's being at Notre Dame shaped the way you are today, and they were a pretty impactful 4 years. And that leads me to my next question about just being at another Catholic high school and coaching at IC. How important is it to be coaching at a Catholic school where you've once learned so many different lessons, when you were in high school?
Yeah, to me, it really means a lot. And I always go back to it. It's kind of like teaching. Like, you have a call for teaching, and you have a passion for it. And going to Notre Dame, I went to public school my whole life growing up, and then for high school, I decided to go there. And there were some, challenging times. My freshman year, my grandfather passed away, who was, he and I were so close. And I had some great coaches that really helped me through that time, and some great teachers. And that's what really drew me back to wanting to teach and coach at a Catholic school, was that connection right there, and the impact that they made. And I think there's something to be said about coaching at a Catholic school. You're able to talk about God, which obviously at public schools you really aren't allowed to do that. But I really think that having a strong faith-based community and being able to come back to being able to talk about God, and especially for young adolescent males, to be able to say, hey, it's okay to talk about God. It's okay to pray, and it's great to have these conversations. And I really think that that's what helps shape me to who I am, and being able to always have that faith base and have that root and have that to my core, that being able to give back to a school and kind of walking in those similar shoes as my players do, and understanding what it's like every day, for them to, have to wear a uniform and have to go through these routines and that kind of stuff, to be able to have that communication with them. I think really, really helped me to be able to take over this program and be able to talk to my players about those things. So, but like I said, it's definitely a calling, to want to be able to teach and especially coach at a Catholic school.
Just quickly, you mentioned when you were at Concordia, Chicago, they were a 500 team, and now at one point recently they were number 1 in the nation. Has there been change in staffs? Like, what do you attribute that that happened at Benedictine too? When I was there, we were a 500 team, and then they went 31-0 and lost in the national championship. They were number 1 in the nation. What do you attribute those successes to? Was it a coach? Was it just a culture change?
So when I got there, we were the largest recruiting class. We had 14 kids in our recruiting class. The head coach who was there at the time did a really good job of building a program. And I think it was just the relentless attitude of we're just always going to get better. And he was somebody that challenged us mentally with just different things, of waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go for a run, having practices on Friday nights from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then Saturday morning getting up at 7:30 for practice to go to 10 a.m. So it was those things right there of just putting us through mental grinds and really just challenging us mentally, that challenges us physically to do stuff, and making sure our teammates got up and put that responsibility on us, because we all lived on the same floor together. And, if one guy was late, we're running. And it was, forcing us to get kids up and to get our players up. So he did that. There was a coaching change during my during the end of me being a GA. And from there, the coach that took over, he was our assistant, who came from Carthage, which was, again, a historic baseball program at the D3 level. And he really set that stepping stone to, getting to the next level and getting to greatness. So I think every year that Concordia, did that, it was being able to go after bigger recruits, go after, top level players, and just that endless pursuit or relentlessness of just, we're going to be better. We're going to find a way to be better than the other team. We may not match up to them physically, but we're going to mentally be able to stay within a game. We're going to, be a smarter baseball team. And that's something that I learned a lot, was the mental side, and being mentally tough and being able to teach and see that from the coaching side of how to implement that mental toughness into the players. And still giving them that confidence to be successful, but having them fail during our practices. And that's something I've talked to my players about. It's like, I want you to fail. We're going to push you to that limit. So when the game comes, it's not going to be second nature to you, or it's going to be second nature to you. It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, like, what's this coming at me right now? So, and I talked to our players about this, and in my parent meeting is, I don't call it practice. It's more of a training session, because practice to me is like when you walk onto a golf tee, before you walk up, and you're, driving the ball at the range or doing your putting, before you go and tee off. Like, you're getting practice, you're feeling good about yourself. Same thing with batting practice. Before a game, you're getting your swing, you're getting loose and that kind of stuff. Well, when you go into a weight room, it's a training session. You're going in there to train. You're going in there to push yourself to exertion mentally, physically, emotionally. And it's like, well, why would I call practice this? Because it's all about changing things in your mind. It's all about a mindset of using certain words that will now all of a sudden change what you're thinking. So I like to kind of call our practices training sessions. And that's something I started to implement with our players. But yeah,
we'll get into words in a second. We'll get into a couple, 4 words that I want to touch base on. But let's talk about IC now. Got hired over the lockdown, the quarantine, and whatever you want to call it. And it's just been a wild whirlwind of a year so far. But, with your season getting pushed to the summer, was initially, start of practice was going to be May 3rd, and you couldn't play until 2 weeks after that. But then they pushed it to, April 11th, gave you an extra 2 weeks of games because you kind of got the short end of the stick after losing last season. So there's just been crazy, and every other day that we can, we're figuring out new information. But with that, because some people lost those summer contact days, the IHSA allowed for teams that were not competing in the fall to have 20 contact days from Labor Day into the end of October. And you took advantage of having 20 days. Now, how important were those days for you to kind of set the ground rules and introduce yourself to your team and start building that culture?
I mean, those were just imperative. I mean, it was unbelievable when we were able to do that. I was in the car with my wife. We were just driving, and she's a hockey coach, and we saw it, and it came up, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, and being able to set that framework and set the groundwork is huge. And not only is it important for me to be able to set, what the foundation of the program is, like where we're going to be going, and taking those first steps of just of what we need to do, but building the relationship with the players. Still doing that, and because there were guys that were playing fall sports and other things going on. So I didn't get to meet everybody, but it's all about building that relationship first. And it was about them knowing who I am and starting to learn each other's personalities and build that trust. Because if you can't build that trust as a coach with your players, and they don't know who you are to the core of who you are as a person, it's going to be really hard to ask them to do a lot of things for you to kind of push through that threshold. Because it's like, who is this guy? We're still figuring him out. So those 20 contact days, not just from a physical standpoint, but from a personality standpoint, it was huge.
Standpoint, right? For
Perfect.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Relationships. Yeah. That's a much better way to put it. It was just so important for that. And especially knowing our coaching staff, our head freshman coach, he was hired a week before COVID happened. Our sophomore staff 2 weeks before, and then myself and two other coaches at the varsity level came in. So there was really two coaches from the previous coaching staff that knew who the kids were, and the kids knew who they were, really. So those 20 contact days were just huge. And I'm glad I was able to get those, and kind of, again, like I said, be able to set the groundwork and the framework of moving forward and where we want to get to, 5 years down the road.
Yeah. No, and then from an athletic director standpoint, it was great that you guys were able to, all of our sports that weren't competing in the fall, it was great for them to be doing something for our student athletes to stay engaged and stay active and, enjoy some time with their teammates. But from my perspective, also just seeing a new head coach at IC to be able to take advantage of those days. So I appreciate you jumping in head first with those 20 days.
Absolutely.
You mentioned culture, you mentioned relationships, and we mentioned words and the way we talk. So on the back of your T-shirts for baseball, I've noticed that it says an acronym THOR, THOR, kind of like the Marvel character. Can you let us know what those stand for and why those are kind of like the pillars of your program?
Yeah. So the T is for teamwork. And then I'll explain them and then go through them. H is for honor. O is for optimism, and R is for relentless. So I thought of those and came up with the acronym THOR for it. And just, when you think of the character Thor, he's this God figure of a cartoon that they, created. And, he's like just a total dude pretty much. And, and I thought of those things and I'm like, what makes a dude? and like on the ball field and off the ball field. And teamwork, like that was a big one. And it's not, the word team, like, together everyone achieves more, which is true, but it's learning how to understand, like, and being selflessness of, hey, you know what, like, I got to put the team before me, and being able to have that mindset and being able to understand, like, there's something bigger than just me. Like, I'm here for the team. And that's something that we really talked about with all of our players, especially those 20 contact days of, we need to put other people before us. And it kind of goes back to the whole thing of, being at a Catholic school, like putting others before you, and really embodying that and taking, and breathing it and living it. And it's true. Like, you have to put others before you. You got to think of other people before you. And it's only going to make you a stronger person, but it's going to make everyone else around you stronger. So teamwork has a much deeper rooted meaning than just, together everyone achieves more. It is a much deeper meaning, and still driving back to the Catholic faith and what the Bible says. Honor. You want to live above a line. Like, there has to be honor of what you're doing. There has to be taking ownership in who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it, and taking pride in what you're doing. And it's not even just on the ball field. It's everything outside of it. And if, you can take pride in what you do, and you can have, and give 100% with everything that you're doing, and feel good about yourself, and know that you gave everything you could, then you did good. And so that's a big one for us right there. And then optimism, always having that mindset of, I'm going to figure out a way to get it. And because there's a lot of times life's going to throw you a ton of things where it's just going to kind of kick you when you're down.
Especially right now, what we're seeing, you got to stay positive for sure.
Absolutely. And realizing you can't give up, and you just gotta push through it. And no matter how many, times you get kicked down, or the darkest of days, and kind of walking through, a dark forest with no flashlight, but realizing, there's a light at the end of it, and being able to teach that. And I think the game of baseball teaches that perfectly for the kids. And it teaches great life things, is you can put the best swing on a ball and hit one into the gap, and the center fielder makes a diving catch. On paper, it's an out, but you did everything you possibly could to help your team be successful. And somebody else, they moved and they caught it, and that's life. And you have to realize that, and you can't look at it as a failure. You got to look at it as like, all right, well, the guy made a great catch, or what can I do next time? And it's taking those failures and turning them into learning opportunities, and being able to take those. And if you're able to do that, you're going to be much more successful in life. So having that optimism, and then relentless. We talk about that all the time. Like, if you want something, you got to figure out a way to go get it. You got to just, and we equate it to baseball. It's like, we want to swipe as many bags as possible. Like, you want second base, go get it. Like, there's no one stopping you but you. And just realizing that, if you want something bad enough, you're going to figure out a way to get it. Comes down to the point in the game where it's just like, we got to get this running, and this guy's just dealing out there. Well, you got to figure it out on how to do it, or you're pitching, and, there's a situation where it's just like, we can't take you out, and it's like, you just got to gut it, and you got to just figure out how to get this ball over the plate, get a ground ball, get a fly out, get us out of that inning. So just kind of just teaching that mindset and really pushing on our kids. And we put it on the back of our t-shirts, and we talk about it all the time, because it's something that I want our players to be ingrained. Like, when we would be kind of breaking it down at the end, I would ask the players, or the other coaches would, like, what does Thor mean? And because we want the kids to understand what it is. We want them to be able to recite it. We want them to understand what it is, and understand with a culture, it's not going to happen overnight, but understand that, like, we just need to ingrain this and put it in their heads of what it is, and that Thor's not just the game of baseball. Thor is life. you have this mindset, you have this understanding, these 4 pillars of a good framework, you're going to be super successful in life when you take it. And that, and at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about as a coach, is helping these kids understand, you know, what life is all about, and helping them like set that foundation. So when they leave IC, they're going to be successful in whatever they do, and have a good foundation, have a good mental approach to things.
Well, I did run into a couple of your baseball players in the weight room not too long ago, and they had the Thor on the back of their shirt. And I went up to one of the players and I said, "What does Thor stand for?" Just kind of give them a little quiz there, and they definitely nailed it on the head. So your guys are paying attention.
Good to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, Coach, I want to thank you for jumping on. I think this was great for our community and our baseball families and our athletic community. Jumping on here, you were researching how to talk about a podcast, but we know it's very easy to talk about what you're passionate about, and you clearly are passionate about baseball and IC Catholic Prep and your student athletes. So thanks a lot, and you enjoy the rest of your break. And awesome. Hopefully we get this episode up here shortly.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. Have a great one.
Yep, I'll talk to you.